Wow, 3 or 4 videos in one day. Anyway, someone commented saying that Christians are the last people to ignore sin. Yeah, so here's my answer to that. Actually, they're the first to ignore sin, since their whole premise is that God sacrificed himself to himself in the form of Jesus, who supposedly came to take care of all sin for them. So now, as inconsistent and contradictory as the texts are, being the only place these characters actually exist, it's expected that some followers will say we mustn't sin in order to get into heaven, and they can also draw biblical support for what they say. And we have followers who will say that Jesus came to cleanse your sins, so as long as you believe, you don't have to worry about doing any good works, because you'll make it anyway with biblical support for what they have to say. And that rule pretty much means you can be a bad person and still get into heaven as long as you believe. They don't say it that way, and they usually don't mean it that way, but that's what it eventually means. Just like saying that anti-abortion, they think it's about the babies, but the actual effect is taking women's rights away. That's why we bring that up. Anyway, Christianity. A definition here. Christianity, inventing loopholes to dodge having to follow some rules and laws spoken by an unchanging God, such as no idol worship, using one of his avatars, Jesus, as an idol to worship. When Christians can stick to one story, one that makes sense first, please, when they can all agree what hell is, what sin is, what God thinks or says, and again, since the book, he contradicts his own rules time and time again in his own divinely inspired, flawless source myth, this is an impossible task for anybody. And then, if they can manage to do that, if they can manage to find a God that doesn't contradict himself, and give us a proper representation of their belief structure, along with providing a physical representation of their God, Yahweh, and or his avatar, Jesus, then we'll take them seriously, at least serious enough to know that these characters exist outside of fiction. But still, when an all-knowing God doesn't need to waste thousands of years damning the souls he claims to love, only then to figure out that he should sacrifice himself to himself, still ending up in heaven, so really there was never any sacrifice involved whatsoever, just so he can figure out how to forgive his childish grudge on the first people that he made eating some fruit that he told them not to, for no reason other than to tempt them before they understood what obeying and disobeying even meant. When a God doesn't need to do all of that, just make sure we don't get tortured forever, then we might take him seriously. As it stands, it's impossible not to laugh at Yahweh Jesus' incompetence when the story is just laid out bare like that. Well, the human incompetence that his human authors and his human creators either intentionally or unintentionally wrote into his character, that is, at least.